What if a single act of kindness, done without thinking, could completely shatter your world and set you on a path that challenges everything you've ever known about sacrifice, survival, and second chances? Amara Johnson was no stranger to hard days. At 28, she carried the weight of her world on her shoulders, her dreams of writing buried beneath the daily grind of life in New Orleans. The Crescent City Diner, with its chipped Formica counters and grease-stained menus, was her battleground. She worked the morning shift, her sneakers squeaking on the linoleum as she balanced trays of eggs and coffee for truckers, tourists, and locals. Her smile was her armor, a practiced curve of lips that hid the exhaustion of raising her 16-year-old brother, Jamal, and caring for their mother, whose lupus flared with cruel unpredictability. Amara's life was a tightrope walk. The diner's $2.13 an hour wage, plus tips, barely covered rent for their cramped apartment in the lower Ninth Ward. Jamal needed new shoes, their mother needed meds, and Amara needed sleep, though that was a luxury she couldn't afford. Writing, her passion since childhood, was a distant dream. Her notebooks, filled with half-finished stories of Black joy and resilience, gathered dust under her bed. One day, she'd whisper to herself, but one day felt like a lie. Still, Amara was a light in the diner. She knew her regulars by name, Mr. Thibodeau, who liked his grits with extra butter, Miss Clara, who always left a $1 tip and a peppermint. She lingered at tables, offering a kind word or a laugh, sensing when someone needed more than just a meal. Her empathy was her gift, though it often went unnoticed by her manager, Rebecca, a sharp-tongued woman who ran the diner like a dictator. On this muggy June morning in 2025, the diner was buzzing. Amara weaved through the tables, her apron stained with coffee, her braids pulled into a tight bun. She was halfway through her shift when the bell above the door jingled, and an elderly man shuffled in. He was black, his face etched with lines like a road map of pain. His coat, too heavy for the Louisiana heat, hung loosely on his frame, and his hair was a tangle of gray. He slid into a corner booth, his eyes avoiding hers as he mumbled, "Just coffee." Black. Amara's heart tugged. She'd seen men like him before, down on their luck, maybe homeless, carrying stories they rarely shared. She poured his coffee, her voice soft. "You sure that's all you want, sir? We got a special on biscuits and gravy today." He shook his head, his fingers trembling as he gripped the mug. "Can't afford more 'n this." She nodded, but something in his eyes, sorrow, pride, a flicker of something unbroken, stayed with her. She glanced at the kitchen, where the cook, Reggie, was flipping pancakes. Rebecca was in the back, counting receipts. Amara made a decision. She plated a hot meal, biscuits, sausage, eggs, and slid it in front of the man. "On the house," she whispered. "You look like you could use it." His eyes widened, then softened. "You don't gotta do that, miss." "I want to," she said, smiling. "What's your name?" "Marcus," he said, his voice rough. "Marcus Williams." Amara didn't hover, she had other tables to tend to, but she checked on Marcus between orders. He ate slowly, savoring each bite like it was his first meal in days. When she refilled his coffee, he started talking, his voice low, almost hesitant. He spoke of the army, of deserts and gunfire, of men he'd led and lost. "I was somebody once," he said, staring at the table. "Had dreams. A family. Now." He trailed off, his hands clenching. Amara listened, her heart aching. She knew what it was to have dreams deferred, to feel invisible. "You're still somebody, Mr. Williams," she said. "You're here, ain't you?" He looked at her then, really looked, and for a moment, the weight in his eyes lifted. "You're kind, miss. Kinder than most." The moment was brief, but it felt like a tether between two souls carrying heavy loads. Amara moved on to her next table, unaware that Rebecca had emerged from the back, her eyes narrowing at the scene. The shift wore on, the lunch rush fading into the afternoon lull. Amara was wiping down counters when Rebecca called her to the office. The manager's face was a storm cloud. "You gave that bum a free meal," she said, her voice cold. "You think this is a charity?" Amara's stomach dropped. "He was hungry, Rebecca. He's a veteran." I couldn't just. Veteran, homeless, whatever, Rebecca snapped. You broke policy. Food costs money, Amara. You're too soft. Always chatting up customers, giving away what ain't yours. This ain't your diner. I was trying to do right, Amara said, her voice steady despite the panic rising in her chest. He needed help. Rebecca leaned back, her lips a thin line. You're done. Pack your things. The words hit like a slap. Amara stood frozen, her mind racing. Fired. For a $5 meal? She wanted to scream, to plead, but pride held her tongue. She walked out of the office, her hands shaking as she untied her apron. Marcus was still in his booth, his eyes following her. She avoided his gaze, too raw to face him, and grabbed her bag from the break room. As she stepped into the humid evening, the weight of it all crashed down. How would she pay rent? Buy Jamal's shoes? Get her mother's meds? Anger burned in her chest, but beneath it was defeat. She'd tried to do good, and it had cost her everything. Days blurred into a haze of job applications and rejections. Amara scoured New Orleans for work, but waitressing jobs were scarce, and her firing hung over her like a shadow. Jamal sensed her stress, staying quiet, while their mother, too weak to help, offered prayers from her bed. Amara's notebooks remained untouched, her dreams further away than ever. One evening, exhausted from another fruitless day, Amara sank onto the couch, the TV droning in the background. A local news segment caught her ear, a story about a war hero fallen on hard times. She glanced up, and her breath caught. There, on the screen, was Marcus Williams. The reporter's voice filled the room. Colonel Marcus Williams, a decorated hero of the Gulf War, led his unit through impossible odds, saving countless lives. But after returning home, he faced a different battle: PTSD, homelessness, and a system that forgot him. Amara's heart pounded. Colonel. Hero. The man in the tattered coat, the one she'd fed, was a national figure? The segment showed old footage, Marcus in uniform, medals gleaming, his face younger but unmistakable. Then, a recent photo, Marcus on the streets, his eyes hollow but proud. The reporter spoke of his advocacy for homeless veterans, his small non-profit struggling to make a difference. Amara's mind reeled. She'd seen his pain, heard his stories, but had no idea who he was. Shame washed over her, not for helping him, but for how little she'd known. And rage, too, at Rebecca, at the diner, at a world that let a hero fall so far. She thought of her own firing, the injustice of it, and something stirred inside her. She couldn't let this go. Amara spent the next day searching for Marcus. She called shelters, checked online, and finally found a lead. His non-profit, Veterans Rising, operated out of a community center in Treem. She went there, her nerves jangling, unsure what she'd say. The center was modest, its walls covered in flyers and photos of veterans. Marcus was there, sorting donated clothes. He looked up, and recognition flickered in his eyes. "Miss Amara," he said, his voice warm. "Didn't expect to see you again." She swallowed, her words tumbling out. "I saw you on TV. I didn't know. I'm sorry. For everything. I just wanted to help that day, and it got me fired, but I'd do it again." Marcus's face softened. "You got fired for me?" She nodded, tears prickling. "It don't matter. I want to help. For real this time." They sat, and Marcus told her more. The Gulf War had made him a hero, but the years after broke him. Nightmares, lost jobs, a family that drifted away. He'd hit rock bottom, but helping other veterans gave him purpose. His non-profit was small, underfunded, but he believed in it. "Folks like us," he said, "we get knocked down, but we don't stay down." Amara opened up, too, about her mother, Jamal, her writing dreams crushed by survival. Marcus listened, his eyes kind but sharp. "You got a voice," he said. "I heard it that day in the diner. Use it. Write for us. Tell our stories." The offer stunned her. "Write. For a cause?" She hesitated, fear whispering she wasn't good enough, but Marcus's belief in her was a spark. She agreed, and they started working together, Amara drafting newsletters, interviewing veterans, pouring her heart into words. Weeks passed, and Amara found purpose in the work. Her first piece, a story about a Vietnam vet rebuilding his life, was raw and real. When Veterans Rising published it online, it spread like wildfire. Ex-users shared it, praising its honesty, and local news picked it up. Amara's words were reaching people, and Marcus's nonprofit gained traction. Then came the call Amara never expected. Rebecca, her old manager, left a voicemail, her tone syrupy. "Amara, we made a mistake. Come back to the diner. We need you." Amara's jaw clenched. She learned the diner was facing backlash. Customers had heard about her firing, and ex-posts called out Rebecca's cruelty. The negative press was hurting business. Rebecca's offer wasn't about Amara, it was about saving face. Amara called Marcus instead. "They want me back," she said. "But I'm done with them. I want to tell your story, our story. Let's go bigger." Marcus agreed, and Amara wrote a piece about him. The hero, the forgotten, the fighter. She wove in her own story, fired for compassion, rising to advocate. When it published, it exploded. National outlets covered it, and Marcus's nonprofit received donations. Amara's firing became a rallying cry, exposing the diner's heartlessness. Months later, Amara stood in a borrowed dress at a gala for Veterans Rising, now a growing force. The room was packed, veterans, donors, reporters. Marcus took the stage, his presence commanding despite his simple suit. He spoke of resilience, of second chances, then turned to Amara. "This woman," he said, his voice thick, "saw me when I was invisible. Her kindness started this. She's our voice, our heart." The crowd applauded, and Amara's eyes blurred with tears. She was awarded a grant to keep writing, to tell more stories. As Marcus raised his glass to her, she felt it, her life had shifted. She wasn't just a waitress, a fired employee, or a dreamer on hold. She was a writer, an advocate, a force. Rebecca's diner faded into irrelevance, its reputation tarnished. Amara's words, though, lived on, sparking change. She thought of Jamal, now dreaming of college, and her mother, smiling from her hospital bed. Her notebooks were no longer dusty, she was writing her story, and the world was listening.